The Romantic Era. If you ask musicians about the Romantic Era, often they will say that it was a period of time after the classical era where composers broke away from the rigid forms of that era and started to introduce more complex harmonies or complex melodic forms. I also like to look at the Romantic era and see the composers, the Romance composers, were ones that found a renewed sense of nationalism and also drew a greater inspiration from nature. Now, when it comes to the guitar in the Romantic era, it's true that this instrument, the classical guitar, was on the wane in the 19th century. There was less interest in this instrument compared to the pianoforte. And it's true that improvements to the construction of the classical guitar didn't really begin until the 20th century. So we have fewer composers of the Romantic era to choose. However, one composer really stands out for me, and that's Napoléon Coste. Not only did he take a renewed interest in the nationalism of his youth when he was composing for guitar, but as well as he also pushed the technical limits of the instrument in the 19th century. So in this video, we're going to look at the life and the works of Napoléon Coste and why he is such an important figure of the Romantic era in guitar history. So guitarists who study the classical guitar using these manuals will first come across probably one of Napoléon Coste's pieces for students from the 25 études de genre. And these are 25 studies that he wrote and published in 1837. However, I was more interested in coming across some of his concert pieces when I was looking for a funeral march to play. And this was the Opus 43 that I came across first. And the technical brilliance of the last part in the Rondeau really blew me away. It was by far one of the most intricate works that I had to play for classical guitar and that I had to study, and it was one of the toughest things that I had played at that time. This was dedicated to his guitar student, Olive Pauilhé. I think that's how you would say it. And this woman actually later became his wife, became Madame Coste. And this is the piece that he dedicated his Marche Funèbre et Rondeau, the Opus 43. He ended up dedicating this to Madame Coste, mon élève et ma femme. And it's kind of interesting that he decided to dedicate a funeral march to his wife, but anyway. The next concert piece for guitar written by Napoléon Coste that I looked at was his Opus 13, and this is variations on La Cachucha. Napoléon Coste was born in the small village of Amondin in the Burgundy region of France in 1805. His father had a political and military background, and this explains the choice of first name Napoléon, possibly after Napoleon Bonaparte. As a child, an illness prevented him of having a military career, so he could not follow in the footsteps of his father. However, his mother was a guitar player, and she would have been the one that started to give him guitar lessons. As a young guitarist and performer, he moved first to Valenciennes and later to Paris, where he would start giving guitar concerts and have some renown amongst the guitar community that was already well established in Paris at that time. One of the guitarists that he met was, of course, Fernando Sor, who was his teacher and eventually became his colleague. They started giving concerts together to some renown in the Paris thing, but unfortunately Sor soon died after they started giving concerts together in 1839. Coste wrote a series of works which were based on the nature and the geography of the region where he was born in eastern France. And I find that's very particular of the Romantic period of that time, to be inspired of where you were from. And he tries to show this in his work, La Source du Lison, particularly with what I find the Rondeau villageois. And you can hear it in these perfect fifths, and you can sort of imagine a group of villagers coming together and dancing around in a circle or something like that. So this is from the Source du Lison. One person who features prominently in Napoléon Coste's middle period is the Russian nobleman Nikolai de Makaroff. Now, this Makaroff character seems to be on a quest to find the best guitars and also the best guitar composers in Europe during the 19th century, in the middle part of that time. Again, when the guitar was on the decline. Now, Napoléon Coste ended up submitting 5 works to this contest. And although Caspar Merz won first prize, Napoléon Coste did come in at second place, and he was the only composer alive at the end of the competition who was allowed to go and collect his winnings, because Merz had actually died before the end of the contest and before the results were known. Now, the winning work, this Grande Serenade, is almost symphonic in nature. And one of the sections in it is entitled Chœur de Pèlerin, or it's a pilgrim's choir. And in this section, Coste lets us imagine a procession of pilgrims singing, perhaps with candlelight in the dark, and it's a very haunting and intimate part of the work. Napoléon Coste returned to Paris after collecting second prize from Makaroff's competition. When he returned to Paris, he did continue giving concerts and giving guitar lessons. However, he also had to take a job as an administrator in public service in order to make ends meet. So maybe, as Bob Kriega would put it, Napoléon Coste was playing not to lose, rather than playing to win. Indeed, Coste did express regret in some of his letters that he didn't tour Europe, say, after the competition and capitalize on his winnings. So despite declining interest in this instrument, Napoléon Coste would continue giving lessons and giving concerts, but unfortunately his concert career would come to an end 20 years before the end of his life in 1863, when he fell and he broke his arm. His arm would never quite recover properly, so he was forced to end up teaching and writing music for the rest of his period. That's all for this video on the life and works of Napoléon Coste, the classical guitar composer from 19th century France in the Romantic era. Now, I plan on making a whole series of videos examining the life and works of other classical guitar composers that are a little bit less well known. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. What did you think of the musical examples or of Napoléon Coste? Have you heard of this composer before? I'm interested in seeing your comments. So be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this and follow the playlist. That's all for the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.